The desert planet was quiet except for the soft whistle of the wind that moved across the endless dunes. Golden sand stretched as far as the eye could see, glittering beneath the twin suns that shone high above. A small research ship rested near the base of a half-buried stone wall. Around it, a group of explorers worked carefully, brushing sand away and setting up scanners. Miran, the leader of the group, stood at the edge of the dig site, shading his eyes from the bright light. He had spent years searching for signs of ancient structures on this planet. Most believed the world was empty, only a place of dust and heat. But Miran trusted his instinct that something valuable was hidden under the sand. Now, at last, his patience was rewarded. "Keep the line steady," Miran said as he watched Elio and Taran lower equipment into the sand pit. "The wall is older than anything we have found before. It might not survive if we rush." Elio smiled while wiping sweat from his face. "If it lasted this long under the desert, it can last another day with us. Still, I'll be careful." As the team worked, more of the buried structure appeared. Carved stone blocks, decorated with faint lines and circles, formed a doorway. The door itself had crumbled, leaving only an opening into darkness. The crew exchanged glances. After years of wandering and waiting, they had finally found an entrance. Nira, the archivist, adjusted her recorder. "This matches no record in the human archives. Not a single symbol resembles the languages we know. We may be the first to see this in many lifetimes." Her voice trembled with excitement. Miran stepped forward and turned on a light. "Let us see what waits inside." The passage led them downward, cooler and darker with every step. The stone walls were smooth and precise, as if shaped by advanced tools. The air smelled dry, untouched for centuries. Torches of white light lit the way as they moved deeper. The silence was so complete that the sound of their footsteps echoed like drums. At last, the passage widened into a vast chamber. The explorers stopped in awe. Before them rose a statue taller than any building they had ever seen. It was made of solid gold, its surface gleaming even in the dim light. The figure stood upright, with broad shoulders and arms stretched outward. In its hands it held a great sphere, faintly glowing with soft golden light. The explorers stared in silence. Even Elio, who was known for his jokes, could not find words. "It looks like a god," whispered Taran. His voice carried across the chamber. "A sun god." Miran nodded slowly. The statue's face was calm, with eyes shaped like flames and a crown of rays spreading around its head. The golden surface seemed alive, as if it gathered the faint light and returned it in a brighter form. Nira raised her recorder. "No record of this exists. If this was a temple, it belonged to a people far beyond our history." The chamber was round, with high walls covered in carvings. Strange markings curved in patterns like flowing rivers. Some formed shapes of stars, while others showed figures reaching toward the glowing sphere. The explorers moved closer, touching the stone gently, careful not to harm it. "Look here," Elio called, pointing at a series of carved figures. "These are not symbols. These are people. Or something like people." The carvings showed tall forms standing around the statue. Some looked human, while others had long limbs and glowing circles around their heads. They all faced the golden figure as if waiting for guidance. Miran's heart raced. He had hoped to find ruins, but never anything as grand as this. The statue was more than a piece of art. It was a message, left behind by a people who wanted to be remembered. Taran touched the base of the statue. The stone was warm, almost alive. He pulled his hand back in surprise. It reacts to touch. How can that be after so long? Nero leaned closer. The glow in the sphere is not natural light. It is energy stored inside. This means the builders had knowledge far beyond what we expected. The team spread out, scanning and recording every detail. Each discovery only deepened the mystery. Why had such a monument been hidden beneath the sands? Who built it? And why did the glowing sphere still shine after ages had passed? Miran stood before the statue, feeling a strange pull in his chest. He thought of the long years searching and the countless times he had been told he would find nothing. Now he saw proof that this planet had been home to something powerful and intelligent. This is no ordinary temple, Miran said softly. This statue was meant to be found. We must learn what it wants to tell us. The chamber grew quiet again as the explorers gazed at the golden figure. The faint glow of the sphere lit their faces with warm light. None of them spoke, for each felt the same thought rising inside: this was not just the past they were uncovering. It was the beginning of a story much larger than themselves. The golden statue stood tall, silent yet full of meaning, as if guarding secrets that waited for the right moment to be revealed. The explorers returned to the chamber the next day, eager to study the golden statue again. The suns had just risen over the desert world, filling the entrance tunnel with light. Inside the temple, however, the air was cool and still. The statue stood exactly as they had left it, holding the glowing sphere as though it had been waiting for them through countless years. Miran walked ahead, his eyes fixed on the faint light. "We must understand how it still shines," he said. "No flame can last this long, and no simple lamp could survive the ages." Nira set down her recorder and began tracing the carvings along the walls. "These markings may hold the answer," she said. "Each line seems to flow toward the statue, as if the entire chamber was designed to draw attention to it." Terran carried a small scanner and moved around the base of the statue. The device hummed as it measured vibrations and energy. Suddenly he froze. "Miran, listen. There is a sound here." The others fell silent. At first they heard nothing, but then a faint hum reached their ears. It was low and steady, almost like the breathing of the chamber itself. "It is inside the statue," Terran explained. "Something is active in there, and it reacts when I move closer." Elio grinned. "Maybe it wants to talk with us." He stepped forward and cleared his throat. In a playful tone he called out, "Hello, statue." To everyone's surprise, the golden sphere brightened for a brief moment, sending a flash of warm light across the walls. Elio's smile faded as he stared. "Did you see that?" "It answered me." The group exchanged startled looks. Miran's voice was calm but firm. "No jokes this time, Elio. Try again, but carefully." Elio nodded and spoke once more, this time in a steady voice. "We are here." The sphere glowed again, slightly longer than before. Then the light faded to its normal level. Nira clutched her recorder. "It reacts to sound. Not to touch, not to movement, but to voice." Terran tested the idea by whistling a high note. The sphere brightened sharply, filling the chamber with golden rays. When he stopped, the glow softened again. Miran felt his heart race. "It responds to tone and pitch. Perhaps it is a form of language." For the next several hours, the team experimented with sounds. They spoke words, sang notes, and even played recordings of simple tones. Each sound produced a different reaction in the glowing sphere. Some made it pulse quickly, while others caused slow, steady waves of light. The explorers began to notice patterns, as if the statue was not just reacting but trying to send messages in return. At one point Nira hummed a gentle tune. To their astonishment, the sphere released a sequence of lights across the carvings on the wall. The symbols glowed faintly, forming shapes like stars and flowing lines. "It is speaking back," Nira whispered. Her eyes shone with wonder. "These are not random lights. This is a code." The group gathered close, watching as the lights shifted in repeating sequences. Lio scratched his head. "I do not understand the meaning, but it feels like it is trying to tell us something important." Miran studied the glowing symbols. "If this is a code, then we must find the key. Every pattern has a meaning. The builders wanted someone to see this, someone who could listen." The explorers worked late into the day, recording every sequence of lights and every sound that triggered them. They began to notice that low sounds often produced patterns of circles, while high tones created shapes like lines or rays. It was as if the statue was teaching them an alphabet of light. When the sun set outside and darkness filled the desert, the chamber glowed with golden warmth. The statue stood silent, yet alive, as though it had been waiting countless years to share its knowledge. Taran placed a hand on the base of the statue again. "This is no idol," he said softly. "It is a machine. A machine made to speak." Nero looked around the chamber, her voice full of awe. "And it chose to speak with us." The group sat in the soft glow, each person lost in thought. The desert outside was endless and empty, yet here beneath the sands, they had found a voice from the past. A voice that had crossed time itself to reach them. Miran stood tall before the golden figure. "We will listen," he said firmly. "No matter how long it takes, we will listen until we understand." The sphere pulsed once, slow and bright, as though the statue itself approved of his words. The explorers returned to their camp beside the dig site, their minds still filled with the glowing lights of the golden statue. Night had settled over the desert, and the two suns were hidden beyond the dunes. The sky above was dark and full of stars, brighter than on Earth. The camp was quiet except for the gentle hum of the ship's machines. Nira sat inside the research tent with a pile of old records spread out before her. She was the archivist of the group, and her role was to compare every discovery with the long history of human exploration. She studied each glowing pattern recorded from the statue and compared them with ancient writings stored in the ship's database. Her eyes widened as she noticed something unusual. Some of the shapes reminded her of old drawings from Earth. She pulled up a digital file of myths once told by ancient civilizations. There, among faded pictures of gods and symbols, she found figures that looked like the same circles and rays they had seen in the chamber. Miran entered the tent quietly. "You are still awake," he said. Nero looked up with excitement. "Miran, you need to see this. The markings from the statue are not new to us. They appear in the oldest stories from Earth. Some tribes spoke of a sun god who held a glowing sphere. Look here. This carving from Earth shows a figure with rays around the head, just like the golden statue." Miran leaned closer, studying the images. "You are telling me that myths from Earth match what we saw on this world?" "Yes," Nira answered, her voice steady. "The same star-like patterns, the same shapes of light. It cannot be a coincidence." Lio stepped inside, carrying a warm drink in a metal cup. He listened as Nira explained her findings. His smile faded as he whispered, "That means our ancestors spoke of this place without knowing it. Or maybe they knew more than we believed." The group gathered in the tent, eager to hear more. Nira continued her explanation. "Many human cultures on Earth shared the same story. They spoke of a being who came from the sky, a being of light who brought knowledge. Some called it a sun god. Some called it a guide. But in every version, there was always a sphere of light. Terran rubbed his chin thoughtfully. If humans on Earth shared these stories, perhaps they were not just stories. Perhaps they were memories. Miran nodded. Memories carried through time, turned into myth. The thought filled the tent with silence. For generations, humanity had looked up at the stars wondering if they were alone. Now they stood on proof that long ago, humans might have known beings who walked among the stars. Nira showed them another record. This one described symbols drawn in caves, circles connected by lines. These could be star maps, she said. The same kind of maps we see in the statue's lights. Lio leaned closer to the screen. So our ancestors may have seen this same code. They passed it down without understanding it, until it became legend. The weight of her words settled over the group. They were not simply exploring a desert world. They were uncovering a shared history that stretched across space and time. Later that night, while the others rested, Nira remained awake. She placed the images side by side, Earth's ancient carvings and the golden statue's glowing symbols. The patterns were too alike to dismiss. She felt a deep sense of connection, as though the builders of the temple had left a message for humanity to find. At dawn the next day, the team returned to the chamber beneath the sands. The statue glowed faintly in the morning light that filtered down through cracks in the ceiling. Miran addressed the group. We know now that the statue is linked to Earth. Our task is greater than before. We are not just explorers. We are guardians of knowledge that belongs to all of humanity. Terran placed his scanner on the ground. I will keep studying the vibrations. If we can match the patterns of light to the old records, we may unlock the full message. Nira carefully traced one of the carvings again. This was not a god to be worshipped. It was a teacher. A reminder of what we once knew. The chamber seemed brighter as she spoke, as if the statue itself approved. The glowing sphere pulsed gently, sending ripples of light across the walls. Lio laughed softly, though his eyes were wide with awe. It listens to us. It wants us to continue. The team stood together beneath the towering golden figure. The desert outside remained silent and empty, but within the chamber, they felt a living presence. The myths of Earth were no longer just stories. They were fragments of truth, waiting to be pieced together. As the sphere pulsed again, Miran raised his hand. We will not stop. We will uncover the builder's secret, no matter how deep it lies. And with that promise, the explorers knew they had stepped beyond the edge of ordinary discovery. They had entered a story written not only in stone and sand but also in the memory of humankind. The golden statue towered above the explorers as another day began in the desert world. The twin suns rose high, their light slipping through small cracks in the temple ceiling. Beams of sunlight landed on the golden figure, making it shine brighter than ever. The explorers stood quietly, almost as if they feared to disturb the sacred stillness. Miran looked at his team. We know this place holds more than stone and carvings. It is a design. A machine waiting for us to understand it. Today we must try to see how far it can go. Nira carefully studied the symbols along the chamber walls. She had compared them with the myths of Earth, and she believed they were more than decoration. Each line and circle pointed inward toward the statue, like a map of energy flows. Terran adjusted his scanner, listening again to the faint hum inside the statue. The vibrations rise and fall with sound, he explained. If we strike the right balance, the hum may change into movement. Lio, never afraid to experiment, took out a small instrument he had carried from the ship. It was a simple flute, carved of light metal. If the statue likes sound, perhaps music will guide it. He raised the flute and played a soft note that echoed gently through the chamber. The golden sphere in the statue's hands pulsed strongly, brighter than before. The sound bounced off the walls, and suddenly several of the carvings lit up, glowing in response. The team gasped as lines of light stretched across the chamber, connecting one wall to another. "It is listening," Nero whispered. "The chamber itself is alive with design." Encouraged, Lio played a series of higher notes. Each sound triggered more lights until the entire chamber glowed like a star map. The statue seemed to stand at the center of a living constellation. Miran stepped closer, watching the patterns. "Look there." The lights gather near the base of the statue. As he spoke, the floor beneath them trembled slightly. Sand fell from cracks above as the chamber groaned, shifting after centuries of silence. Slowly, with deep rumbling sounds, a section of the floor opened, revealing a passage that descended below the statue. The explorers froze in awe. They had uncovered a hidden chamber within the temple. "Careful," Terran warned as he scanned the entrance. "The air is stable. No danger detected. We can go inside." Miran led the way, his light casting shadows along the stone steps that spiraled downward. The others followed closely. The passage was narrow, but the stone was smooth and polished as if carved by advanced tools. At the bottom, they stepped into another vast hall. This one was filled with tall golden mirrors standing in perfect alignment. The mirrors caught the faint light from above and reflected it onto a crystal structure in the center of the room. The crystal was large and clear, glowing faintly with stored energy. Nira gasped as she looked around. "This is a chamber of light." The mirrors were built to capture the suns above and focus them here. Elio walked slowly among the mirrors. "It feels like we are standing inside a machine. A machine that uses the suns themselves." Miran approached the crystal. "If the mirrors are meant to focus light, then the crystal must hold the result. Let us see what it contains." As the suns rose higher outside, beams of light streamed down into the chamber through small shafts cut into the ceiling. The mirrors reflected every beam toward the crystal, which began to glow brighter. The explorers shielded their eyes as the glow turned into a radiant projection that filled the hall. Above them appeared a moving image, made entirely of golden light. It was a map of the stars, stretching across the ceiling. Countless points of light shone like jewels, connected by glowing lines. Terran raised his scanner, his voice trembling. "This is not random. This is a star chart." The explorers stood silently, their hearts pounding. Among the glowing stars, Nero pointed to a small blue dot. "That is Earth," she said with certainty. "I have studied the old maps. I know its place." Miran looked across the projection and saw another dot glowing brighter than the rest. "And there is this planet," he said. "They are connected. The builders wanted us to see this link." The star map shifted, showing paths between worlds, shining lines that looked like routes of travel. Among the paths, figures appeared, humans standing side by side with tall luminous beings, working together as if they once shared the same journeys. The explorers stared, speechless. The statue above had been only the beginning. Here was the proof that long ago, humanity had not been alone. Nira's voice broke the silence. "Our ancestors may have walked the stars. The builders left this map so we would remember." Miran raised his eyes to the glowing projection, his chest heavy with awe. "This is the truth hidden beneath the sands." Not a temple of worship, but a record of journeys. We must learn all it can show us. The crystal pulsed again, brighter, filling the hall with warm light. It was as though the ancient builders were speaking across time, guiding humanity back to its forgotten path. The golden crystal projection filled the chamber with dazzling light. The explorers stood in silence, surrounded by the glowing map of stars. Every point of light felt alive, as if it carried stories of journeys long forgotten. The paths between stars pulsed gently, drawing their eyes from one world to another. Miran slowly raised his hand, pointing at the image of Earth. This map is not just for this planet. It shows that Earth was part of something greater. The builders wanted us to see this connection. Beside him, Neera studied the figures that appeared among the stars. Some looked human, others taller with radiant halos around their heads. Yet they all stood side by side, their arms extended as though in unity. These images show more than travel, Neera said softly. They show partnership. Humans walked with the builders. We were not strangers to them. Terran adjusted his scanner, recording every detail. That means humanity once had knowledge of space travel far earlier than we believed. Perhaps our ancestors lived with these beings, learned from them, and then forgot. Elio frowned, his usual smile gone. How could we forget something so important? How could we forget that we were never alone? Miran's voice was calm but heavy with thought. Time has a way of burying truth. Perhaps a great change came, and humanity lost what it once knew. The builders must have left the statue and chamber as a memory, waiting for us to find when we were ready. The projection shifted again. Now the map focused on a cluster of stars. At the center was a radiant sun larger than the others, surrounded by symbols of light. Around it appeared both humans and luminous beings, working together as if building something. Neera leaned closer, her eyes wide. This may have been their home, the heart of their civilization. They placed it at the center of their map, as if to show us where they came from. Terran noted the position carefully, though the stars were difficult to match with modern charts. If we study this long enough, we may be able to locate it. This is a gift of knowledge from across the ages. The explorers stood together, filled with wonder. Each of them felt the same thought stirring within. Humanity was not small or forgotten. It had once been part of a grand journey among the stars. Miran spoke firmly. This changes everything. Our history books tell us humanity rose from the earth alone. But this map proves our story began much earlier, and on more than one world. We must share this with all of humanity. As if responding, the crystal pulsed brighter, sending waves of golden light across the chamber. The mirrors caught the glow, reflecting it again and again until the entire hall shone like a rising sun. The explorers shielded their eyes, but none looked away. When the light softened, the star map faded into a new image. It showed the golden statue above, holding the glowing sphere. Then the sphere split into two halves, one half shaped like the sun, the other like the earth. The two halves shone equally, then came together again as one. Elio whispered, "It means Earth and the builders were united. They shared one path." Neera's voice trembled. The statue was never a god. It was a teacher. It held the light to remind us of what we once shared. A bond between two worlds. Miran stepped closer to the crystal. Then our task is clear. We must learn, not worship. We must understand, not fear. The builders left us this place so we would remember who we are. For a long moment, no one spoke. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of the crystal. The explorers felt humbled, standing at the center of a story far older than their own lives. Finally Terran said, "This knowledge could guide us to travel farther than ever before. If we learn the energy stored here, we may open the path to new stars." Miran nodded. "Yes. But we must proceed carefully. Knowledge is a gift, and it is also a responsibility. The builders trusted us to use it wisely." The crystal glowed gently again, as if to confirm his words. The team left the chamber slowly, their minds filled with images of star maps, radiant beings, and the memory of a time when humanity was not alone. As they climbed back toward the statue, the golden figure stood silently above them, still holding the glowing sphere. It seemed to watch them, patient and timeless, as though it knew they had finally uncovered the secret it had guarded through the ages. Outside, the desert winds blew softly across the dunes. The twin suns shone brightly, just as they had for countless years. Yet for the explorers, the world felt changed. They no longer looked at the sky as distant travelers. They looked at it as a road once walked by their own kind, a road waiting to be walked again. Miran paused at the temple's entrance and turned back to the statue one last time. His voice was steady, full of quiet promise. "We will remember. And we will continue the path you showed us." The golden sphere glowed faintly in answer, a final reminder that the builder's secret was now part of humanity once more. The explorers gathered once more in the crystal chamber, their eyes fixed on the glowing heart at its center. The star map had faded, but the crystal continued to pulse with a gentle rhythm, as though it were alive. Its light filled the room with warmth, soft and steady, like the beat of a living memory. Miran stepped forward, his voice firm but calm. "We have seen the builder's story. Now we must discover what they left behind for us to learn." Terran adjusted his scanner and placed it against the crystal's surface. The device lit up at once, recording streams of energy unlike anything he had seen before. His eyes widened as he studied the readings. This is not just a display of light. There is information stored inside. Entire layers of knowledge. Nero moved closer, her heart racing. "Can we unlock it?" Terran hesitated. "The energy flows in patterns, like a language. If we touch the right points, the crystal may share its memory. But we must be careful. It is powerful." Elio stepped forward with his usual boldness. "If it was meant for us, then it will not harm us. It has waited all this time, holding its message." Miran gave a small nod. "Let us try." Together they placed their hands on the crystal. At first it felt cool, smooth like glass. Then warmth spread through their palms, followed by a sudden burst of light. The chamber brightened, and golden streams of symbols flowed out of the crystal, circling around them like ribbons of knowledge. The explorers gasped as visions filled their minds. They saw shapes of machines powered by light, vast structures floating between stars, and systems that drew endless energy from suns without waste or harm. The images were clear yet gentle, as though teaching step by step. Nero whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is knowledge far beyond us. They are showing us how to use light as power, clean and endless." Terran tried to steady his voice as he continued to record. "Mathematics, engineering, designs for systems we cannot even name. It is like a library made of light." The crystal pulsed again, and another vision appeared. This time the explorers saw great vessels sailing across the stars, their sails glowing like suns. Humans stood among luminous beings, working side by side, guiding the ships through paths of golden light. Elio's eyes shone. So this is how they traveled. Not with fire, not with heavy engines, but with light itself. Miran felt his chest tighten with wonder. They left this for us. They trusted humanity to find it again, when we were ready to rise. For hours the crystal shared fragments of its memory. Each touch revealed new layers, ways to build structures that healed themselves, methods to grow food in places without soil, and techniques to guide ships through the stars using only the pull of suns. The explorers listened, learned, and recorded as much as they could. Finally the crystal dimmed, its glow returning to a soft, steady rhythm. It was as though it had given all it wished to share for now. The chamber grew quiet again, filled only with the sound of the explorers' steady breaths. Nero lowered her recorder, her hands trembling. This is more than history. This is a gift. If humanity learns to use even part of this, we can change the future. Terran nodded. Clean energy, new ways to travel, new ways to live. The builders left us not just memories but tools. Miran stood tall before the crystal, his face lit with determination. This is why we were drawn here. We are meant to carry this knowledge back to our people. It belongs not to us alone but to all humanity. Elio smiled, his voice full of quiet pride. It feels like we are part of something greater now. As if we are no longer small explorers, but messengers of light. The team left the crystal chamber with heavy steps, their minds overflowing with visions of what they had seen. As they climbed the stone stairs back into the main hall, the golden statue awaited them. It still held the glowing sphere high, as though watching over them with patience. The explorers stood together at its base. The soft light from the sphere reflected in their eyes, reminding them of the gift they had received. Miran raised his voice, steady and full of promise. We will not keep this hidden. We will share it. The builders trusted us, and we must honor that trust. The sphere glowed brighter, pulsing slowly in rhythm with the crystal below, as if answering him. The chamber filled with golden light, bathing the explorers in warmth. For the first time since landing on the desert world, they no longer felt like strangers among ruins. They felt like students in a grand hall of learning, guided by teachers who had lived long before them. Outside, the desert winds whispered across the dunes, but within the temple, the explorers carried the light of knowledge in their hearts. They knew the journey ahead would not be easy, but they also knew humanity had been given a chance to rise higher than ever before. The golden statue stood silent, its sphere glowing steadily, as if reminding them that the gift of knowledge was not only power but also responsibility. The explorers stood at the entrance of the temple, the golden statue towering behind them. The twin suns of the desert world shone brightly, casting long shadows across the dunes. For days they had uncovered mysteries, seen knowledge from a forgotten age, and felt the presence of a civilization that had once walked among the stars. Miran looked at his team. We have learned much, but the greatest question remains. What should we do with this knowledge? Nira adjusted her recorder. We cannot hide it. Humanity deserves to know the truth. The builders left it for us, to be shared, not kept secret. Terran nodded, his eyes fixed on the glowing sphere. The crystal holds the key to technology, energy, and space travel. It is a gift that can change everything. We must carry it carefully. Elio smiled, though his eyes were serious. We are explorers, yes. But now we are also messengers. It is our duty to take this knowledge to our people and use it wisely. The team returned to the crystal chamber one last time. The crystal pulsed softly, welcoming them as though it remembered every touch, every question, every discovery. Miran placed his hand on the smooth surface. We will honor your trust, he whispered. We will share what you have given without fear or greed. The crystal glowed brighter, filling the chamber with golden light. The mirrors reflected it in every direction, creating a dome of brilliance. The explorers felt warmth and hope surround them. They could imagine a future where humanity used this knowledge to travel to distant stars, harness clean energy, and build a better world. Neera traced her fingers along the carvings on the walls. The builders knew that knowledge alone is not enough. Wisdom is needed to guide it. That is why they waited for us to find it when humanity was ready. Taryn studied the energy flowing from the crystal. We must learn carefully. Every step we take will shape the future. We cannot rush. We must understand fully before acting. Lio placed a hand on Miran's shoulder. We have found the first chapter. The next chapters are ours to write, but we carry the guidance of those who came before. Miran nodded. Yes. And we will not fail. Humanity will rise, just as the builders intended. Their gift is more than knowledge. It is a reminder of who we are and what we can become. The explorers began to prepare for the journey home. Carefully, they packed their instruments, recordings, and devices that could store the crystal's information. Every item was treated with respect, as though handling a treasure that belonged to the entire human race. As they stepped back into the desert, the golden statue stood tall behind them, its sphere glowing softly in the sunlight. The explorers felt a sense of gratitude, knowing they had been chosen to uncover this legacy. Miran looked at the horizon, where the sands stretched endlessly. We have unearthed mysteries, yes. But more than that, we have found a path. A path that connects the past, the present, and the future of humanity. Neera smiled, eyes reflecting the sun's. The myths of Earth were only pieces of the story. Now we have the truth. And we can share it with everyone. Taryn adjusted his pack and looked back once more. The builders left signs, and we understood them. That is proof that humanity is capable of growth, learning, and wonder beyond imagination. Lio laughed softly. We came looking for ruins, but we found hope. We found a chance to rise higher than we ever thought possible. The explorers began their journey back to the ship. The desert winds carried the memory of the temple with them, the golden statue standing like a sentinel of time. The crystal's knowledge was no longer hidden. It would guide humanity, step by step, toward a brighter future. As they climbed aboard the ship, Miran looked down at the desert one last time. This is only the beginning, he said. The builder's secret has been revealed. Humanity's story has changed forever. And now, it is up to us to carry it forward. The ship lifted from the sand, rising into the sky. Below, the temple and the golden statue grew smaller, yet their presence remained strong in the explorers' hearts. The twin suns reflected on the ship's surface, shining like the light of the crystal and the promise it carried. Above the desert world, the explorers felt hope and responsibility in equal measure. They were the first to see the full story, the first to understand the builder's message, and the first to hold the gift of knowledge. The mysteries were unearthed, the path was revealed, and humanity's future had begun anew. The golden statue of the sun god remained behind, glowing in silence, but its message traveled with the explorers across the stars, ready to shine for all who were willing to learn.